All right, so I'm live with Mr. Michael James here. This is a result of what would you call it? A team building exercise that we
Yeah.
have on Thursdays in the office called Four at Four. Mike works with me with the Cowboys, we're all the account executives, and this was Mike's 4 at 4 here. Was to hop on the air with me and have a little debate, and we thought it was timely to do this debates this week because this summer we had a whole argument in the office about whether Joe Burrow is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts or not. And so after they played this past weekend, the Eagles won, caps off. It was a very emphatic victory. So I commend the Eagles for that. They're really starting to get into shape. But it brought up that question: is Joe Burrow a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts? So I'm happy to have you on your mic. And I think the way I'm going to set the stage here
Mhm.
is I'm going to allow you to explain why you think Jalen Hurts. Mike is an Eagles fan. Let's give context. Mike is an Eagles fan, and so I want to let you give context as to why Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Joe Burrow.
Well, honestly, I mean, I've got some notes here. So
Let's hear it.
started all the way from rookie season all the way to really this past game. So first of all, I just want to preface also, I am a fan of Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is a great quarterback, literally probably one of my favorite quarterbacks um, in the NFL, if I'm being honest. But just so to kind of start things off, let's just get a few things out of the way. So would you agree that with Joe Burrow being the number one pick and Jalen Hurts being drafted in the second round, then Joe Burrow's expectations should be a little bit higher, correct? That's fair?
I totally agree. Yeah.
Okay, fair to say. And then, so can we agree that they were drafted in the same year, 2020? So can we agree that Jalen's rookie year is a wash because he did not start? Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Also, so one thing I want to kind of ask you real quick before I kind of get into the facts. Would you rather have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith and AJ Brown? I'm just curious on.
I would rather have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith.
Okay, fair.
And you also have to give context to that too, because it's more than just that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Also has Saquon in the backfield, but we'll get there.
But this is the first year with Saquon in the backfield. So
Okay, fair.
So just to kind of get into things, so both drafted in 2020. Unfortunately, Joe Burrow did tear his ACL that year. I think 10 games into the season. So Jalen's first year starting under a rookie head coach, Nick Sirianni. That was Nick Sirianni's first year. Jalen's rookie year, their coach was Doug Peterson, and the starting quarterback was Carson Wentz. So Doug Peterson got fired. Jalen Hurts' first year as a starter. Nick Sirianni, rookie head coach. So rookie starter, rookie head coach. Jalen Hurts' first year starting under Nick Sirianni, which in turn will be a rebuild with the new head coach and a new quarterback, correct?
Yes.
So that first year, Jalen as a starter went 8-7, and his wide receiver one was Devontae Smith. So okay, for context, Joe Burrow's first year as a starter under a second-year head coach and the same offensive coordinator, he was 2-7-1 with T. Higgins as his wide receiver one, and he had Joe Mixon in the backfield. So working with a little bit more and a far worse record, because at that point, if Joe Burrow doesn't get hurt, you would agree they still probably lose more than that 7 games than which Jalen Hurts lost, correct?
Yes.
Correct. So off rip, odds of Jalen being more successful as a rookie versus Joe Burrow being more successful as a rookie, as a first year starter, not aligning, but yet Jalen Hurts did have more success. So I already said Joe Burrow had the same offensive coordinator during that time. Jalen Hurts had 2 different coordinators. So I don't even remember who was calling plays in 2020 whenever he wasn't a starter, but I mean, you still have to go in every day and learn a whole new offense because Nick Sirianni under Jalen Hurts' first year became the OC. So he had to learn a completely new offense. So again, another thing going against Jalen to be more successful, but yet he still was. So with that being said, both teams kind of followed the same model because the Eagles already had their foundation with a great O-line. You had Kelsey, you had Isaac Seumalo, you had Lane Johnson, Mailata, he wasn't proven yet, but now we see he's one of the better left tackles in the game. Joe Burrow did not have that his rookie year. His O-line was terrible. But 2021, they revamped their whole O-line and then went and got him Alex Kappa, Ted Karras, and Lyle Collins, and then also went ahead and drafted Jamar Chase, who was one of his best targets at LSU. So now they're kind of aligned here. Joe Burrow in his second year starting got a pretty good O-line, got 2 weapons. So in 2022, so the year after Joe Burrow's, so Joe Burrow's second year starting, Jalen Hurts. Let me pull it back a little bit. Both of them in their second year starting. The Eagles went and traded for AJ Brown, and Bengals went and drafted Jamar Chase. So boom, both second year starters, both have 2 weapons, both have a pretty good O-line. Both of them follow the same model, like I said, and both of them took their teams to the Super Bowl. Fortunately, they both lost the Super Bowl, but Burrow in his Super Bowl, he went 22 of 33, 263 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 picks, 2 rushes, 3 yards. Pretty serviceable game, right?
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts in his second year starting also took his team to the Super Bowl. And again, obviously they both lost. 27 of 38, 304 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 15 rushes, 70 yards, 3 touchdowns. So not only are we seeing, because Joe Burrow in that game had a 100.9 quarterback rating, Jalen Hurts had 103.4 quarterback rating and also gave you more value on the ground. So it's like, okay, if you want to say Joe Burrow's a better quarterback, well, on the biggest stage, Jalen Hurts had a better passer rating. And then, okay, you want to factor in the rushing. Okay, I'd rather take the more dynamic player over just the pure passer. I mean, and if you want to call him a pure passer, he had a less quarterback rating. So there's that. And then I want to get into a little bit of their career numbers. So got this pulled up.
All right.
So again, drafting the same year, but Jalen wasn't drafted to be the starter. With that being the case, Jalen has played 9 more career games than Joe Burrow. And, something we like to say, the best ability is availability. So I'm drafting you number 1, and you're not even playing games. Like, what are you doing for me sitting on the sideline? Like, I get it. Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit luck of the draw, but at the same time, if you look back 2023, this past season, Jalen Hurts was hurt. His knee was hurt, and he played the entire season. So there's that. And with Jalen playing 9 more games, in all the games he played, he still has less losses than Joe Burrow does as a starting quarterback.
Well, I'm going to say this. You've articulately laid this out. You have presented a very compelling argument, Mike. I can tell that
it's just a start
and did your research. So I appreciate that, but I'm now going to proceed to surgically pick it apart.
All right, let's hear it.
So you made a comparison of Devontae Smith to T. Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, I'm going to focus on that.
All right.
There's no comparison. Devontae Smith is a way better receiver than T. Higgins, and that's fact. He's a way better receiver than T. Higgins. Number 1. Number 2, I want to compare the situation of Joe Burrow to Jalen Hurts as far as the situation goes.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, Joe Burrow inherited a fantastic receiving core, especially in his second year when they added on Jamar Chase and he had Joe Mixon in the backfield. Joe Burrow never had an elite offensive line, ever. That was always his biggest bugaboo. And that postseason game against the Titans back in 2022, he got hit 9 times. 9 times. That would never happen to Jalen Hurts in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts has always had a fantastic line to just sit behind and surgically pick apart whatever defense he's going up against, and it helps him get spacing to run, which plays in his strengths. Philly's a very strategic team.
Right.
That's the second thing that I'm going to dive into here. Organizationally, the Eagles are among the top 5, if not the top 3. That is a very buttoned up, very well-organized, well-oiled machine in Philadelphia.
Agree.
So anybody who gets drafted by that team, it's an absolute blessing because they're going to spend money. They're aggressive, but they're also very strategic about the decisions that they make.
Correct.
So they took Jalen Hurts back in 2020, knowing exactly what they were going to do with him. Not every NFL team does that. There was a strategy in mind. They saw the trajectory that Carson Wentz was on.
Agree.
They got Jalen Hurts. They said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then they strategically went and drafted Devontae Smith, went and got A.J. Brown, and just built this team up from the ground up. Philly is a team that's going to spend money. They're among the top percentile in cash spending for NFL teams. Cincy is in the bottom 5. Cincy is a very cheap football team. They're not going to spend money. And so whereas Joe Burrow had that core early on in his career, and mind you, he went to the Super Bowl first full year, second year went back. He's not going to have this forever. And to the AFC Championship, went back to the AFC Championship. It's going to get worse and worse for Joe Burrow because, as you're seeing, Cincinnati is just simply not going to spend money, and so they lost Joe Mixon, they lost Tyler Boyd. They're going to lose more and more guys. They're probably going to lose Trey Hendrickson at some point. If they may pay Jamar. I'm not sure if they will or not. They're probably not going to pay T. Higgins. And so this core that he had is gradually just falling apart. Philadelphia right now, I'll talk the head-to-head on Sunday that they just had. Because if you look at that game in itself, just like we looked at the Super Bowl comparing them head-to-head, it would look like Jalen Hurts is far superior. Statistically, performance-wise, it would look like he's far superior. However, if you remove Joe Burrow from the equation in Cincinnati, that team sucks. Like they're a bottom. That is a bottom of the barrel team because that offensive line is awful. That defense is awful. Two of them, but they're a very high penalized team right now, and so Joe Burrow essentially is the glue that holds Cincinnati together, whereas Jalen Hurts is part of the well-oiled machine in Philly. All over that field, it's all pros, offensively and defensively. Look at the composition of this team. You've got Devontae Smith, you've got A.J. Brown, you've got Saquon in the backfield, you've got Darius Slay on defense, and Jalen Carter. Like it's everywhere. The team is just absolutely stacked. Reed Blankenship, I love Reed Blankenship. Like I love Reed. It's a very well organized team, and so that's where Jalen Hurts is, and it's been fantastic for his career, but I think Joe Burrow has done a little bit more with a little bit less, a lot less, I should say. Joe Burrow has been pushing against the current his entire career, whereas Jalen Hurts' organization helps him become the best player he can be.
So a couple points I want to hit on. So you made the point that Bengals, they don't spend a lot of money, which I partially agree with because at the same time, when they went and got Lyle Collins, when they got Alex Karras, when they got Kappa, all those offensive linemen, they paid those guys. So they paid to get Joe Burrow a better O-line. Like, while I do agree, Philly, one of the best front offices in the league.
And y'all spend money. Like if you have a guy who's productive, like you paid Devontae Smith a whole year before CeeDee Lamb.
But that's homegrown talent though, at the end of the day. And again, while I agree with a lot of your points, at the same time, I mean, we're talking front office, I'm talking about the play on the field because how you said that the team, Joe Burrow, you would say you take Joe Burrow out of the equation, that they're screwed, right?
Absolutely.
Last season, whenever Joe Burrow went down, Jake Browning came in 4-3 as a starter, so above 500. I actually took notes of this. The Bengals are 6-8 without Joe Burrow. So 6 + 8, what's that? 14 games. You're already a number one pick, missing 14 games, and you're barely below 500. Last season, they went above 500 without you. The Eagles, without Jalen Hurts, 1-4. Do you want to know who that one win was against, BG?
Who?
The New York Jets.
which I mean that's
so I mean, so it's like, what are we really saying here? Because not only are you missing games, but we've shown we can win without you. With Jalen Hurts, we have one win whenever you're not playing. One.
That's honestly a fair point, and I think that you also you got to give that context too. You got to look at competition, who they played. I mean, since he's schedule last year was a lot easier on the back ends, and last year you also have to think too. They still had Joe Mixon, they still had Tyler Boyd, they still have all of that.
For sure.
They don't have any of that anymore. Last year, since he was a lot more serviceable of a team than they are this year. This year,
yeah, I know, which is fair, but at the same time, I'm looking at the whole framework work from rookie season all the way to where we're at now. And you said something that I just wanted to hit on. Oh my gosh, what was it? Oh, you said that, you know, a little bit more competition. In 2022, whenever the Eagles made the Super Bowl, the NFC East was literally statistically the best conference in football.
You know why that is?
Why?
They had one of the easiest schedules in the entire NFL. Dude, the Giants made the playoffs.
Because the Giants were good that year. They won a playoff game.
Because and again, I don't want to get into the Giants, but they played the 31st best defense in the NFL.
They did, and I make that same point. So
y'all got set up. Like I feel like got set up, but they also capitalized too. So I give that to them. Point is, when you want to compare the two talents, you got to look at the whole picture, and organization has a lot to do with it, because when somebody is put into a place where there's structure and their staff is working to benefit them, it's easy for them to flourish. That's not the case for Joe Burrow. Like Jalen Hurts has Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman is the best general manager in sports.
1,000%.
And professional sports, it's not even close. So Jalen Hurts is always gonna be there. So there's going to be times where he's going to look a lot better than Joe Burrow, but it's because Joe Burrow is doing more with less. And I also want to point out, because you were talking about the Super Bowl head-to-head, which I thought was a very good stat for you to go dig up. But I found stats here cumulatively for their entire careers. Statistics kind of head to head. So Jalen Hurts has played more games, 69. Joe Burrow's played 60.
Right.
Joe Burrow has a higher completion percentage, 68.3 to 64. He has more passing yards through less games, 16,000 to 13,000. Approximately. I don't want to give it's a mouthful, the actual number. He has 112 passing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts has 75. I get that Jalen Hurts is a dual threat quarterback, and that's his style, and he's very good at it. And I want to preface that by saying I think Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback as well. I'm not shitting on him. He's a Bama guy, so I'm not going to sit here and pick him apart. But when it comes to what's going to win at the highest level, Joe Burrow is better. Completion percentage, passing yards in less time. That's a better quarterback.
You say that, but at the same time, okay, you look at the completion percentage. You know, Joe Burrow plays those 9 games. We're probably looking. He might be a little bit less. Like, obviously, I hate to bring what ifs in that, but those 9 games, a lot can happen in 9 games. You know, especially with Joe Burrow historically. You know, he always starts off poorly to start the season. And also, I feel like, you know, how you threw in the passing touchdowns, a lot of that factors into team identity as well, because, you know, Joe Burrow's first year as a quarterback, it was like first year as a starting quarterback. It was, we want you to come in here. We want you to sling the rock. Like, we went and got you T. Higgins in the second round. This is what we need you to do. And that's a big reason why they didn't pay Mixon. I mean, you had a talent like Mixon there in the backfield, but, you know, obviously their team identity was definitely catered towards the pass, whereas Jalen Hurts, you know, being more of a dual threat, having one of the better O-lines in football. You know, at the time they had Miles Sanders, and then they went and got DeAndre Swift. So it's like, okay, the team identity, we like to run the football, which is why you come here and then you look at the rushing stats as well. Jalen Hurts, 48 rushing touchdowns to Joe Burrow's 11. Like, That's a lot. That's a lot of touchdowns, BG.
Oh, it is. But
And then,
but again, identity. That is not at all Joe Burrow. That's not Joe Burrow's identity yet. And he's quick. He's quick.
no. Yeah, for sure. But exactly my point, though. It comes to team identity at the same time. Obviously, 112 pass touchdowns to the 75. It's like, okay, yes, obviously, you're putting the ball in the air more. I would expect you to have that. But then you go, how you say, okay, look at better quarterback. We go to the quarterback rating. Joe Burrow's quarterback rating is only 8 points higher than Jalen Hurts for the career. 8 points. 8.
That's pretty marginal. That's pretty close. So it's there, and in a lot of ways, I think that there's a lot of similarity between these two guys.
Oh,
because you look at it, and we talk about this in the office today. But both guys went to the Super Bowl in their second year starting, and lost by 3 points.
Yep.
Which is absolutely insane. But I want to say this about Joe Burrow, and I think that this is what distinguishes him. First full year playing with and Cincinnati, and Joe Burrow's first year playing was the Vegas odds. They were expected to win between 5 and 6 games. Nobody had the Bengals doing shit that year. They started to put some wins together. I was like, interesting. Kind of a quick start for Cincy. Well, let's see how long this thing actually lasts. Then they get 10 wins in December. Then they lock up the North, and you're like, whoa, this team's good. And then they win a playoff game, another playoff game, another playoff game. And mind you, 2 of these 3 playoff games are on the road. So they took the hard way to get there. And Joe Burrow, as a quarterback, as a leader, pushed through that. And I think that when you're comparing quarterbacks, it's something that you have to evaluate. How did they get there? And then this is the second year, complacency never sets in. Cincinnati cruises right back to the AFC Championship. And if it's not for a silly penalty by Joseph Osai,
they go back 1,000%.
They probably go back to the Super Bowl and play Jalen Hurts head-to-head, which would have been huge in supplementing this discussion.
It would have been.
That would have been major today.
But actually, that's crazy that you bring that game up because I remember that game very.
So what I want to finish saying here is Jalen Hurts second full year starting goes to the Super Bowl. Great. Year after, start 10-1. Huge drop off. Complacency sets in. Gets his ass spanked by the Buccaneers on the road, a place Philly should have never been.
Correct.
And so, if you're the starting quarterback of a team and you want to be in the same conversation as an elite quarterback, you don't let something like that happen. And there's granted, there were a lot of internal dysfunctional things that were going on at that time, but when you're going on the road against a team that your roster is clearly superior to,
we didn't have edge in that game.
You don't let that happen, and
no edge in that game.
And that's one, and that's another thing that I want to bring up about Philly. Philly is a team where if you get 1 or 2 guys injured, they can still be fine because they are that deep. Cincy, if they have a guy go out, if Jamar Chase goes out for Cincy, they are screwed because there's nothing else that team to fall back on foundationally. And so Joe Burrow is playing in a lot more challenging of a situation than Jalen Hurts is, and he's doing just the same, if not better. And so that, to me, when you consider all factors, shows that Joe Burrow is a superior talent, a superior quarterback, but it's not by much. I'm not going to sit here and say like Joe Burrow is the better quarterback, hands down, not even close. No. When I say this, if you want to talk in point spread terms, it's probably like Joe Burrow -2.5 or -3. It's close, but I give the slight edge to Joe Burrow.
Okay, perfect. So some things I want to rebuttal with on some of the things you said. You said that, the costly penalty to Osai is a big reason why they lost that game, correct?
Yeah.
So we know how football works, obviously. One team scores, you get the opportunity to go back and, get the job done, correct?
Yeah.
So in that game, Joe Burrow, on 41 attempts, completed 26 of those, had 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Now, I don't know if you remember that game, but I do remember before the drive before Osai made that penalty, Joe Burrow threw an interception. And they lost that game in a tie game. He threw an interception in a tied game. So whenever it comes to cold-blooded, at that point, where was it? I didn't see it.
Okay.
I didn't see it because that's
Right.
that's a 3-point.
If you want to go there, Mike James. If you want to go there, Mike James, you're going to get posterized here in a minute.
Listen, because I didn't see it. Because if we want to go cold-blooded, what quarterback has the most come from behind victories since 2021?
That is Jalen Hurts. You showed me that. I'll admit that is Jalen Hurts.
Exactly. So you say, let's look at how he got there. Oh, he would have went back if Joseph Osai didn't create the penalty. He had the chance to go win the game, and he did not go win the game. And then another thing I wanted to counter, how you said he's doing more with less. So last year, Eagles started off 10-1. Obviously, we found out had a lot of coordinator issues, a lot of internal issues. Coaching wasn't too sure about it. Nick Sirianni, we don't know what's going to happen. During that season, the Eagles' overall defense ranked 30th, 31st passing, and 10th in rush defense. This year,
that's pathetic.
Exactly.
Considering what they had, that's pathetic.
Exactly. So you're talking the 30th overall defense, and you're starting off 10-1. You want to know who the MVP favorite through those 11 weeks were?
Jalen Hurts.
Exactly.
You want to know who else was MVP favorite last year? Dak Prescott.
Regular season, Dak Prescott did his thing. There's no doubt about that.
And the guy who won it chokes all the time.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna get into that, but I don't know exactly what Cincinnati's defense ranked, but I do know for a fact it wasn't 30th. So, and they made the playoffs that year. One of the most historical collapses of all time. BG ended the year 1-5.
I could not. And that's another thing.
So, hold on, let me finish. This current season, the Bengals sit at 3-5, correct?
Yes.
So, for context, Eagles started off 10-1, finished 11-6, 30th ranked defense. Mm-hmm. This season, the Bengals are 3-5. They currently have the 25th overall defense, the 22nd passing defense, and the 25th rushing defense. So, with one of the biggest collapses in NFL history, the Bengals still have a better defense than the Eagles did. And unless they only lose one more game, they're going to finish worse than that team.
Here's what I'm going to counter that with. Your statistical compilation for 2023, consider the whole year. This for the Bengals so far is only through 7. Or where are we at? God, no. Is it
we're going into week 9?
Holy shit, time flies.
Yeah.
Wow. You also have a low scoring game like the Patriots game in there too, so that's going to throw it off. I'm telling you, Mike. The more you see this Bengals team play, the more they're going to get worn. The more they're just going to get worn down. The defense is going to allow more points. It's going to end up at the same spot that the Eagles are at. It's going to finish at around the same rank because it is awful. You saw what Philly did to them. You saw what Washington did to them. I mean, you saw what it's not hard. You saw what the Ravens did to them. It's not hard to surgically pick this defense apart. And so he's Joe Burrow is working with almost nothing right now. And Cincinnati, I don't know why I drew a blank on that. Holy shit. Getting very tired. The playoff paths were a lot harder for Joe Burrow than Jalen Hurts. He managed to get there 2 years in a row. I mean, going to Tennessee, going to cold Nashville, playing the 1 seed, going to KC, beating Arrowhead in a comeback, or beating KC in a comeback, and then the year after that, it's just as hard, and so it's you have to consider that Joe Burrow is 5-2 in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts is 2-3. One has a winning record, one has a losing record.
Well, see, what I would counter that with is, okay, we want to throw that in there. Jalen Hurts' rookie or first year starting as a quarterback, they were not supposed to make the playoffs.
No, and I'll give you that. Like I'll give you that.
You know who they lost that playoff game to?
It's still there. That loss is still there.
It is, but that was an overachieving team that was not supposed to make the playoffs.
I'll give you that. But you can also counter that with the ass slapping that happened in the playoffs last year to that same Buccaneers team. That should have never happened because that Philly roster was far superior to that Bucs roster. That should have never happened. You had Jalen.
Didn't have AJ. Honestly, I don't think Slay played that game either. I believe he was hurt. But you know who they lost that his first year starting game to?
Tom Brady. I know. I was there.
Greatest quarterback of all time.
Oh yeah, I was very happy about that.
If we're gonna hold a first year starting quarterback for a second round first year starting quarterback, wasn't even supposed to be in this position. Because keep in mind, Carson Wentz had gotten paid before that. So he wasn't even supposed to be in this position. Will this team to the playoffs? We have not seen Joe Burrow face a year of adversity and will his team to the playoffs like this. We have not seen it yet. And yet we've seen Hurts do it time after time after time after time.
Face adversity.
That was a rebuilding team that made the playoffs, BG. A rebuilding team.
What were the Bengals in 2021? Do you think they were expected to get there?
In 2021?
Yes. They were supposed to win 6 games.
You had the revamped O-line. You had T. Higgins. You had Tyler Boyd. You had Joe Mixon. You drafted Jamar Chase. Pretty good defense. You got Logan Wilson on the defense. You got Trey Hendrickson on the defense. You got DJ Reader on the defense. You got Mike Hilton, who's one of the better slot corners in the league. You had Chidobe Awuzie, who at the time had a little bit of a career resurgence. Looking at it, that tracks. That
defense was good, not great. It was a good defense. It was a situationally good defense. That offensive line was atrocious.
No, his
line was atrocious.
That was the year they went out and went and got all those guys. But let's see, 2021 total defense. Let's see. Really quick.
It was a very it was a bend don't break defense.
Ranked 12.
That's middle of the league.
That's right outside the top 10.
Middle of the league. 16
that's right outside the top 10.
Halfway, pal. 16 is halfway. That's a good, not great defense.
16 is halfway. That means they would have to drop 4 spots. You know how many spots is 4 spots? That is a lot of spots.
They'd have to get 7 spots to get into the top 5. Think about that, pal.
Only two spots to get in the top 10.
That's fair. It's a situationally good bend don't break defense.
That was a good defense, man.
He had that, which was good. The offensive line, Jalen Hurts has never had to deal with a deteriorated offensive line like that, and Joe Burrow makes it work without being. That's the thing without being a mobile quarterback, evading the pocket. He sits back there and slings it.
Joe Burrow can extend plays. That's an underrated part of his game.
It's not quite Jalen Hurts, but he can.
Correct.
But I will say, at the end of this all, these are 2 great quarterbacks, and so I want to give them credit for that. I think that we both presented very compelling points today. I want to thank you for coming on here, Mike.
Thank you.
We went 34 minutes. I only want to go 15, and we went 34. So it was a damn good debate, damn good conversation, and we both came really prepared. I've got to go make a video here about Indiana.
Right. Yes, sir.
The Hoosiers. It's got to tell people about the Hoosiers. And Ryan Fields, I'm sure Ryan Fields is waiting. The Colorado video is about to drop. And so I got to get that out there. But I appreciate you coming on, Mike. This was a blast.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it as well. And then just one last thing. Yeah. I wanna leave, and it's just the one thing that gives Hurts the edge. Only one of these 2 quarterbacks has made an all-pro team. and that quarterback is Jalen Hurts.
That's voted on.
By who?
That's a popularity contest.
No. Well, Joe Burrow is one of the most popular quarterbacks. I'm not, bro. He got BG. He got more nicknames than he got playoff wins, brother. Come on now.
Well, don't. He
Joe
has
Cool,
5. Jalen has 2.
Joe Cool, Joe Shiesty, Joe Burr, all that, man. Slim Shiesty, everybody.
Jalen Hurts is on my television every morning. Every morning, I'm having my banana toast, and there's Jalen Hurts talk about lemon perfect or some shit.
Handsome guy, man. He's a handsome guy. But no, I just wanted to leave you with that one last statistic. But appreciate everything. Appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun.
This was sick. Thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'll see you in the office, pal.
Yes, sir. I'll see you tomorrow, man.
I'll see you later. That shit was hilarious. Good shit. You came prepared. That was awesome.
Got to, man. Got to.